How can you read and retain an entire book in one sitting? Not even one day, one sitting. Literally sit down and retain all of the information from an entire book. Here is exactly how you are going to pick up and master this book right here, How to Read a Book. If you don't know what this book is about, here's a hint, read the title, How to Read a Book. Now, it's by Mortimer J. Adler, who was an avid reader, exceptional. He has dedicated so much of his life to books and reading and also writing. I would say he has a much higher value on reading. So my biggest tip for anyone who is reading a book, maybe perhaps you or a friend, if you're going to read a book, figure out the intentions and the personality or even the personas that the author is putting on or displaying, or what's the author's intention. And sometimes the author isn't actually the author that you read on the front. It's a ghost author. It's a made up editor marketing type of author. So you need to be very careful about who you are reading and learning from, because if you think that the author is above you and you're looking up, oh, Tony Robbins, oh, your book is amazing. Oh, this is gold. Every single thing you say is perfect. You will be gullible. If who you're reading, you're looking down on and you don't like them, you resent them, you're going to be skeptical. Okay. So in order to get the most out of a book, you must look at the author. Okay. Who is the author? What are they about? What's their intention? What kind of questions have they spent their life actually display, like actual actions that they have displayed throughout their entire life, that it's proof, it's undeniable that Mortimer J. Adler loves reading. It's undeniable. If you look at Charles Darwin, it's undeniable. He went around the world and he studied evolutionary biology. If you look at Mozart, I don't know if Mozart wrote any books, but you look at his life and he's all about music. So if Mozart wrote a book about cars, you'd be like, oh, what's this guy on about? I want to listen to him about music. So in order to, here's the number one first tip. How to read a book is be very careful and intentional about what books you read. It's better to be a well-read book reader on a few select books than a bookaholic, a block-full bookhead, they call it in here, right? So be very selective about the books that you read and be aware of who you're taking the information from, not just in books, but in everything. So let's get into the book. There's 4 main sections in the book that I'm going to break down, and they are the 4 different types of reading. The first level of reading is called elementary reading. Level 2, inspectional reading. Level 3, analytical reading. And level 4, my favorite, is syntopical reading. Okay, so level 1, I found that in this book, the third level was the most descriptive and beautifully written. It describes a lot of different approaches and questions to ask from the perspective on analytically reading a book. That's probably where you get the most amount of bang for buck. And then you get the kind of a diminishing return once you get up to level 4. So let me explain the levels. Level 1 is basically, can I understand the words that the author is using, right? So what you can do when you're reading a book is any word that you don't understand, circle it. Oh, that's another tip. I'm just going to throw all the tips out from this book. Use a pen or a pencil. I first started out with a pencil because I was scared to, damage the book. But once you write in a book, it makes the book your own. You're having more of a conversation. You're engaging with the author, and there is a greater chance for your mind to retain that information. Imagine if you're in school and you're just sitting back and you're passively listening, whatever, you're scrolling on social media, you're not going to remember as much in the class. But what about that kid that's like in class and they're just hyper focused and they're putting their hand up, they're taking notes? That engagement is what creates that upper part of the brain to switch on, and you're going to remember things. And especially if you're looking for questions to ask, you're going to remember. And you're also going to be searching, okay, I want to know about the laws of thermodynamics. What about that law? When are they going to bring this up? How does that affect that? And your mind's constantly searching, right? Anything you search for or you look for in the brain, you're going to receive. Okay, there was a great, I can't remember who it's from. I'll put it on the screen, but he said, show me what you're looking for and I'll tell you what you'll find. Because it's basically like, and that's why it's so important. If you're gullible or you're skeptical, you know what you're going to find. If you pick up a book by someone you are super infatuated with and you're gullible to them and you're subordinating to them and you think they're better than you, I'll tell you that you're going to agree with everything they say. You pick up a book of someone you resent and you're gullible to, you pick up someone you resent and you're skeptical to, I'm going to tell you, yeah, you're not going to like what you read. You're not going to believe it. You're going to be skeptical. You're going to poke holes through it all. Okay, so be very clear and intentional with the questions that you ask. So going back to before, have a engaging connection and conversation with the author and circle words that you don't understand. Now, at first, try and figure out and ask yourself the question, okay, what does this word mean, right? And if you can't, come up with an answer, even write it down, even if you think it's wrong. And then when you Google it or have a dictionary next to you, then you can figure out, okay, that's what it means. And you can place that word in the context. Now, words are only there to help us to understand and not to define. Okay, so what I mean by that, if you look up a word, courage means to face your fears, basically. But in what context are we talking about having courage to go to the toilet and take a shit, courage to, write a book, courage to make a YouTube video, whatever it is? See, the word is dependent on the context. So what I used to do is I would write down words as I'm going along that I didn't understand. At the end of the reading session, I would look them up, but it didn't give me that extra knowledge. We want to figure out that we want to optimize our efficiency and effectiveness and energy that we're spending on reading and learning. And by doing that, it's circling, even though it takes a bit longer, circle the word, look it up, place it in the context of the conversation of what the author is talking about. And then you can link your brain and you will not only understand and learn what that word means, but you'll understand what the author is trying to say. Imagine if you're having a conversation with someone, because that's what reading is. Reading is a conversation, but the author is talking and you can't ask questions back. You have to kind of have your own inner dialogue and ask yourself the questions and figure out, okay, what's the author trying to tell me? Because a good book is going to not just give you the answers directly, they're going to give you all the little clues so that you can figure out yourself. And that's where you get the most amount of learning from. Another great tip is you actually want a book that's going to challenge you and support you. So if you pick up an advanced mathematics book and you're an arts major and you've never done any mathematics before, it's too challenging for you because you don't know anything that's, you might know a couple words or symbols that are going on in the book. So it's overwhelming to you, it's challenging, and your brain will go to sleep. On the other hand, if you pick up a kid's book and it's all just drawings and colors and simple words, it's too easy. You know all of it. So we're kind of looking for a 50-50 split of what I know and what I don't know. And you push yourself beyond your current level of understanding. So a great tip that they talk about in this book is when you find something you don't understand, instead of beating yourself up and being, I'm such an idiot, I don't get it, ask yourself, oh, okay, what's this trying to teach me? What do I not understand? What can I now learn and grow from this? Because that's the gold right there. You want to actually pick up on things that you don't understand so that you can push yourself to that next level. So that's level one, is figuring out, do I understand the words? That's elementary reading. The second level of reading is inspectional reading. So this is basically skim reading. This is really, really important if you want to be able to read a book in a day and retain all of the most important information. So when you first get a book, make sure that you're going to understand, most of the words. Make sure it's in your realm of, it's on a James Joyce book or some crazy shit. And just skim through literally and just jump in and out and read the subtitles, okay? And see what kind of format is this book in? How many sections are there? How long are the paragraphs? How long are the chapters? Are there quotes in this? Is it informative? Is it practical? Is it, and just jump around and, this one says finding the meanings, spotting the important words. Oh, isn't that, I'm skimming through the book looking for the important words, and I found the section that talks about finding the important words, right? So bang. And this is a bit out there, but when you're reading and you're centered and grounded and you're not gullible and you're not skeptical and you have intention of what you want to learn from the book, your brain has a crazy, crazy way of directing you towards what you want to learn. Because as you pick up your speed with reading, you'll find that certain pages and certain words and certain paragraphs will really jump out at you. And it's part of the process of kind of letting go of that text to voice reading, the audio reading. When you read and you hear you kind of say it in your head. That's what we don't want. That's very slow. So we want to transcend that and go to visual reading instead of audio reading, where you can kind of look at it and you go, bang, okay, what words stand out to me here? What's going on? And then you go to the next one, and then you scan, and you just look in the center of the page. And when you're centered and balanced, and you're not in a rush, and you're not thinking, you're not ashamed, you're not trying to, oh, I didn't remember that, fuck, I'm gonna have to look back. Once you're completely present and centered in the middle of the page, you look and you'll just bang, you'll get it. At first it'll take a while. I'll do more videos on this in the future explaining exactly how to do this, but level 2, you're basically just going through and skimming it. Now, this could technically be described as reading a book. Because if you have a question, if you're writing a book, if you're studying something, if you want to learn something, you can actually pick up a book and skim. I want to learn about quantum mechanics. And you skim through and you go, I want to go to the section on quantum mechanics. I'm going to go to the very end of the chapter. I'm going to go to the very last paragraph. I'm going to read that paragraph. Oh, okay, that just summarized quantum mechanics. Out of that, what did I want to learn out of that I didn't understand? Then skim through that chapter, find it, bang. So you can literally read an entire, now that's not what the video is about. We want to get up to the more advanced levels. But yeah, the level 2 is, don't underestimate a good skim. Okay, just looking through, jumping in and out, kind of asking yourself some questions. Something I really like to do is I go to the very back of the book, of the bibliography, and figure out, okay, what are the sources? So what's the index? What kind of words are they using in here? And then what's the bibliography? Where are the sources? What books and what people are they referencing? How do they come up with this information? And that gives me a good idea of what the author's intentions and what they've learned and what their level of awareness and what they've studied and what they've researched so far. Level 3 is called analytical reading. That's my favorite. So here's where we come into the most important questions to ask yourself when you're reading a book. Okay, so question number one that you're going to ask yourself when you're reading a book and you're up to the analytical stage of reading, if you know what you want to get out of it, you can understand the words, you know what the book's about. Okay, you ask yourself, in a single sentence, describe the book. Okay, cool, describe it in one sentence. Number two, in greater detail, describe the book. So now you just do a bit of a paragraph. Number three, of all the information in the book, how much of it is true or not true? Okay, how much are these facts? Is this speculation? Is this, empirical? Is it scientific? Is it religious? Is it metaphysical? Is it practical? Is it theoretical? Describe the book. How true is it? Okay, and then number four, what of it? What of it? What am I going to do with this information? Because that's the point of the book is what of it? Is it to entertain your friends at a dinner party? Is it to get a PhD? Is it to make YouTube videos? What of it? What of this information? What can you do with it? What's the next level? So step three, you really get into all kinds of things, Now, the sort of second half of the book gets a bit, not as valuable. The most value in this book is the first 180 pages. That's really where the meat and the juice of this incredible book is, because it's going to give you a list of questions. I'm actually going to find the questions here for you so that you can skip it. Okay. So these are all the questions to ask yourself. The first stage of analytical reading, rules for finding what a book is about. Number one, classify the book according to kind and subject matter. Two, state what the whole book is about with the utmost brevity. Three, enumerate its major parts in their order and relation and outline these parts as you have outlined the whole. So that's really important, is to break down, okay, what major parts are in the book, and in each major part, what are the minor parts in that major part? So you get a whole kind of abstraction and kind of flow chart and diagram of what the book's about. That's going to create order in your mind and give your mind enough working power to then take in new information, because we can't take in new information if our brain's going crazy and it's not ordered and structured. Think about if you've just moved into a new house and the entire house is completely messy and disgusting. There's boxes everywhere. You've downgraded house and now there's shit everywhere in the house. Now, are you going to go out to Harvey Norman and buy a new couch and new plants and new paintings and a new desk, and a new dining, are you gonna go and buy a whole bunch of new shit? No, because your house is a fucking mess. It's in complete chaos. So before you can buy a new desk and chairs and whatever, and a couch and TV, right? You're gonna go through and organize all of this stuff that you already have and put it nice and neat. And if you want to throw it out, if you want to throw out the couch and get a new, then cool. That's creating order, is literally dumping it. Dump the fucking shitty couch from the old house, dump it in the bin, go to Harvey Norman, pick up a new one. You're not going to be able to create more order, and you're not going to be able to transcend your current level of awareness and knowledge unless you create order with what you already have, whether that's throwing it out or neatly, categorically organizing it into a nice little beautiful space in your mind, in the room, in the environment. That's really important. Number four, define the problem or problems the author has tried to solve. Okay, part two of this analytical reading. The second stage of analytical reading, rules for interpreting a book's contents. Come to terms with the author by interpreting his key words. Grasp the Number 6, grasp the author's leading propositions by dealing with his most important sentences. 7, so that's prioritizing the highest priority things that the author is trying to get across. Number 7, know the author's arguments by finding them in or constructing them out of sequences of sentences. 8, determine which of his problems the author has solved and which he has not, and of the latter, decide which the author knew he had failed to solve. Sometimes a great book, like Carl Jung, I love Carl Jung. Sometimes Carl Jung would come to the end and he'd be like, hey, this is all I know. I've taken it as far as I can, and I'm hoping that you can be humble enough to withhold your judgment and learn from me and build on my shoulders and stand on my shoulders and build up from this. So he knew very well that there was a lot more to do. Whereas you have other authors like Nietzsche, where he's like, I know everything. I'm God. I'm amazing. 3, the third stage of analytical reading. Rules for criticizing a book as a communication of knowledge. A, general maxims of intellectual etiquette. Do not begin criticism until you have completed your outline and your interpretation of the book. Do not say you agree, disagree, or suspend judgment until you can say, I understand. 10, do not disagree disputatiously or contentiously. 11, demonstrate that you recognize the difference between knowledge and mere personal opinion by presenting good reasons for any critical judgment you make. B, special criteria for points of criticism. 12, show wherein the author is uninformed. 13, show wherein the author is misinformed. 14, show wherein the author is illogical. 15, show wherein the author's analysis or account is incomplete. Note, of the last 4, the first 3 are criteria for disagreement. Failing in all of these, you must agree, at least in part, although you may suspend judgment on the whole in the light of the last point. So, some really deep questions, and that's only stage 3. That's only level 3 of reading. So if you really want to understand a book, because really all books are the same. They have an introduction, they have a problem, and they have a conclusion, just like a story. Now, I'm not here to tell you that you're going to be able to read an entire book in one sitting after watching this. It's going to take some time, which I know no one likes to hear, but think of it like this. You're on a journey, you're on an exploration to develop your awareness and develop your consciousness and your perceptions and your emotions and everything that makes you you. You're on a journey to progress that forward, to grow it, to be on the journey with it. So why do you need to be in a rush? Why do you need to read an entire book so quickly? You know, take your time with it and really let your awareness guide you and let your intentions direct you towards the most valuable things for your soul. So I knew I wanted to be a master of books. I knew I wanted to read 1,000 books by the time I was 30. And I'm on that journey now. I'm going to do 1,000 YouTube videos breaking down every single book that I read. And I've just realized if I'm going to do 1,000, I've been rambling on for about 30 minutes. So it might take 10,000 hours of analyzing books. I love it. So I knew, because I had that intention, I had that goal, I want to read 1,000 books. Then I'm like, fuck, well, I better figure out how to read a book then. Oh, what do you know? There's a book called How to Read a Book, and it's by one. So my favorite, one of my favorite books is called Syntopical, Angel to Love and Man to World by Mortimer Adler. So he basically read a shitload of books and created a book about books, and it's got all different topics in there, and it's just such a beautiful, beautiful book. And I've lost my train of thought of what I was talking about. Yeah, so there was that book, Syntopical, which I knew about before this book. And then I was like, oh, Mortimer J. Adler, he's a pretty switched on guy. He's written this amazing book. So I looked him up, and he's, what do you know? There you go, how to read a book. So it's like, what are your goals? What are your intentions? And don't just read for the sake of reading, because you're not going to retain it. The more specific you can get with prioritizing the books that you're reading, the bigger bang for buck and the greater momentum you're going to build whilst you're reading. Okay, so you might not start with all of these questions. You might just start with a few. You might just start with learning the words. You might create a routine, a structure around, how much you want to read, when you're going to read. Is it by time? Is it by pages? Is it every day? Is it once a week? And are you going to do a book club? Are you going to go to the library? Are you going to go buy new books? Are you going to do an audio book? Are you going to all these different things? But the key is to figure out, okay, what step in where am I at right now with my skill level of reading? Because they use an example in here in the book about skiing. If you've never skied before and you try and go down the diamond slope or whatever the most advanced one is, you're going to fucking fall and kill yourself. So at first it's like, go down the baby slope, figure out how to put the skis on, and you think of one thing at a time. So just think of one thing at a time. What's just one little thing that you can add to your reading that's going to take you to the next level? Okay, the fourth and final level of reading is called syntopical reading. This is where it gets a bit crazy, and he doesn't describe syntopical reading as much in this book because it's more up to the reader's interpretation of what syntopical reading really is. So in this book, he's referenced about 150 other great books to read. So syntopically reading a book is basically like, okay, I'm going to read a book, and then what are the references that this book has used? What are the possible other books that relate to this book? And then I'm also going to read those. So instead of reading one book, you're reading like fucking 100, and you're then linking and almost creating a dialectic, a discussion between Mortimer J. Adler and Nietzsche, or Jordan Peterson, or John DeMartini. You're trying to link them, and you're going to fight pseudo, Pokemon battle, fucking fight them against each other and figure out, okay, DeMartini has this point, but then Adler has this point. Okay, what truth do each of them have? How do their ideas combine? How do they agree? How do they disagree? What's the middle ground? What's the benefit? What's the drawback of both of them? And then you kind of merge them together. And what that does, it expands your mind. And instead of just getting a perspective through a single lens, you're getting it through multiple lenses. And that will skyrocket your reading, because if you have a great intention of what you want to get out of a book, the greater your retention. So the greater the intention, the greater the attention, and the greater the retention, right? It needs to be linked to what you love most and a goal that inspires you. If you pick up a book and you don't love it and you don't want to read it, you're not going to retain it. It's a fucking waste of time. So follow books that your soul is attracted to, that you really want to learn, that you're hungry for. And if you're not hungry for the book, keep looking. If you're not hungry for the book, but you think you want to read it, skim through it. What kind of parts do you want to write? Some questions down and look up the author. What really inspires you? What's going to get you? What's going to challenge you? And what's going to take you to that next level? So that is How to Read a Book by Mortimer J. Adler. It's a beautiful book. I highly recommend the 4 different levels of reading. You know, take it one level at a time. Ask yourself some quality questions, set your intentions, have a focused attention, and you'll have a greater retention. Thank you for watching, and see ya.